Ladies and gentlemen, the weekends. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our final panel of Cloud Matsuri for this November 2021. There are all kinds of things you could be doing right now. You could be going out, you could be having a drink, you could be sitting down watching the new live-action Cowboy Bebop. But you're not. You're here, and you've chosen to stick around with us because we have something better than even the best Cowboy Bebop episode. We have Anime Limited CEO Andrew Partridge here to answer your questions. Good evening, Andrew.
Hello.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. It is Friday, which means that the weekend is almost upon us now, and I am looking forward to it, I think, at this point.
Indeed, aren't we all? But first, we'd have plenty of questions. Ever since kind of yesterday, you guys have been pouring your questions into us via Twitter using the hashtag AskAndrew. If there's anything you've not posted yet, then feel free to send it to us on Twitter, and we will see if we can squeeze it in. And also just keep the questions coming in the live chat if you're watching this on YouTube. But we have a whole host of stuff to get through. Thank you again for all of your questions, from the ridiculous to the sublime. We've had so many. But I am going to start with Zach Shannon from Twitter, who asks, I'm rather curious if you can tell us more about your expansion into North America and what you plan to bring to the US as a company.
That's a good question on it, and like a really good one to start off with, actually. Well, first off, we've been releasing soundtracks in the US, Canada, and like in Europe, and like outside of our normal territories of the UK and France for a while now. What else we plan to do is bring more of what we've been doing with home videos, so titles which have either slipped through the cracks or titles we just really, really love and had a great opportunity to release. So like the latter category would be something like Be the Beginning, for example. And on the other side, the kind of really kind of things which slip through the cracks, which undiscovered gems for us, would be titles like Bartender, which like I will almost never shut up about, much to Andy's chagrin on it. Actually, not always, really. I think he quite enjoys it as well. But that kind of idea of what we do just now with the Criterion style releasing format we have for packaging, like that's something we want to take further with home video outside of our normal territories just now. Music is already there as well, so you're going to see a lot more music from us as well, basically. I hope that answers the question there on it.
Yeah, excellent. And yeah, like as we move into 2022, we'll hopefully have quite a bit to start talking about there. And I'll also say, yeah, if you've not checked out Bartender yet, give it a watch. It's really good. So next question, I guess we'll stick on something of an industry tangent at the moment. Agent 347 on Twitter says, with the Funimation, Crunchyroll, Aniplex situation unfolding, with them all kind of coming under the Sony banner, what's your current take on what this means for the UK industry and those wanting new and old titles in their repertoire to end up with an Anime Limited Collector's Edition?
Well, on the first part of the UK, it's a mixed bag, really. Like, I mean, on one hand, like digitally, I think it means promising things for people, because I think it's like having stuff in one place is not necessarily a bad thing. Who knows what that means for pricing, though, in the future? You look at platforms like HBO Max and such in the US and their price points, then you look back at anime, and there's definitely a gap there. And as things consolidate, there's more of a reason to up the pricing there digitally, probably, would be my guess. But like overall, in terms of what it means for the industry, having no one really knows yet. I think there's a lot of decisions to be made on that kind. When you bring that kind of size of companies together, there is a huge machine that starts running, basically, where nothing is really ever set in stone, and there's a lot of really important decisions to make about things. Like, you've got three excellent brands there you're bringing together, basically. You have to work out what the best thing is overall for going forwards as well. And it obviously impacts, those companies have like tendrils across the world. Like, you know, they have like 3 out of the 4 streaming platforms in France now will be like either owned or partially owned by one group, for example. Whereas like 2 out of 2 for the simulcast platforms in the UK will now be owned by the same person. So there's a lot of decision making to come before it comes to something like home video, for example, where there's currently a system in place for home video for Funimation titles, for example, through Funimation UK/Manga UK. Basically just now, but in the future you never know. Like maybe there'll be something for us to do there on the physical frontier. Like we would like, we'd like to think it's kind of hypothetical at this point, because I think until the big questions are answered, you can't really address the operational questions on a territory by territory basis. And as much as the UK is very, very important to me on it, it's a smaller territory by far than say the US on it. And until questions are answered for how that's going to work, the other territories kind of come in line after that,
Yeah, and having sort of been around this industry for a while myself, I'll say things change quite quickly and quite often, so it's always difficult to know exactly what's right around the corner, because stuff changes quite a lot. So next question from Ghibli fan in the YouTube chat here. With so much anime out there to go for, how do we decide what to chase in terms of licenses, and how do we balance the popular and the more obscure titles?
Well, I think it really is kind of a tough balancing act on it. There's kind of a straight curational line we have though on stuff is, does it fit within the kind of undiscovered gems that we really want to show as many people as we can? Or is this a title we already really love and we know you guys do too? So you've got titles like on one end of the scale, you've got like Cowboy Bebop for us. On the other end, you've got titles like Planet S, Bartender, that kind of thing, And like the Silver Spoon more recently, if you've seen the Christmas video already, you've heard this partially from me already. And that's kind of what we use as our guiding star now. Like the market's kind of changed to a point where simulcast titles are now not exclusively, but there's a very high bidding war that goes on now first between the platforms, which includes Funimation/Crunchyroll in that. There's them, like by the looks of it nowadays, Disney Plus as well, with Netflix, like occasionally other platforms as well in that kind of mix on it. And like, so there's a lot of money being put on the table for the digital rights first to feed those platforms. So like what we look for are the classics, either the undiscovered titles or titles we're already supporting. So stuff like Love Live is a great example of that. On the new series, right, like Frontier and Film Frontier, it's very much, we are director driven and content driven ultimately. So we follow titles like, like Bella's coming up from Amuro Hosoda, having worked on Mirai before, like both in the UK and France, and same again for Bell. Like we have a bunch of films coming up, like Inuo is a great example, having worked with like Masaki Yuasa's works previously, like as well. So we tend to try and develop directors from day one. Now that doesn't always work. For example, sometimes directors get picked up by another distributor, like them, but we try and focus on building new talent and then like continuing to work and continue to build them, as a stable of directors, much like in Japan what distributors do there. And like that's a real passion area for us on it. So it's, I guess really we follow the curational line of, does this fit something we want to show everyone we really are passionate about at the end of the day? And that's really what defines us between whether doesn't matter whether it's a hot new show or an undiscovered gem basically on it. That's kind of the guiding star we use.
Which leads perfectly into our next question from Crimdome113 on Twitter, who asks, has there ever been anything that falls outside of the realm of anime that you've been tempted to license or would just like to? Whether it's a niche Western animated show that's been forgotten, or, and I particularly like this example, Home and Away.
I like that example of it. It just opens up so many things. There was a period in anime actually back in the early 2000s where companies like ADV would release titles in the US, like Farscape, for example, like such. And there's always some sci-fi I would love to do, like on that kind of frontier. Like there's all sorts of titles where it'd be really cool to do what we do in anime for live action. Doctor Who is a great one, for example, for that. There's honestly so many things. The immediate thing which leapt into my brain the minute that they said Home and Away though was like Choco Brothers, for example. Do something fun with that, But I could go on all day, honestly, like on a serious note. There's a lot of stuff we would love to do outside of anime there with the packaging styles we have.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to being flooded with requests from the marketing side from people on social media asking when we're going to license Chuckle Vision. But please please don't at us. That's not that wasn't a license announcement. Just to be clear,
it wasn't. I promise.
So sticking with the licensing questions, Joe Ray W on Twitter asks, is there much difficulty in terms of licensing anime from Netflix? I'm aware some of the more prestigious movies have ended up there, but what hope is there for titles like, as examples, Devilman Crybaby or Dorohedoro?
It really depends on the title, but Netflix titles are really on a title by title basis on that front.
It's or Dorohedoro.
Talk about them because everyone is different there, but it's not. It's not impossible. It just like there's a lot more nuances to it than anything. We've released a few of those kind of titles, like Violet Evergarden. We're releasing Kakaguri as part of our Christmas sale, like Be the Beginning, for example, as well. There's like a bunch of titles in that mix we've already like worked on, and a bunch we will continue to work on there. And both of the titles mentioned are ones I really love.
Yeah, absolutely. So next up from Epoch252 on our YouTube chat says, in the past that we've spoken about the potential of SD-only shows being released through Anime Limited on SD Blu-ray, a la some of Discotek's releases in the US. Is this something that we're still considering?
Yeah, it's definitely something we're still considering. It's kind of on a licensor by licensor basis, and it needs the right title. The same problem, whether it's on one disc or whether it's on 10 discs, things like the BBFC is still like the main stumbling block in that kind of area, if that makes sense. So it's like it has to be the right kind of title. But there's a few out there I'd really love to give a shot to, you know?
Yeah, and it should be noted we did release our first kind of collector's, ultimate edition, in fact, with SD Blu-ray content being Gundam Seed. So we have sort of stepped into that a little bit already. So we've had a few questions around kind of things related to either titles that people want, and a few about some of our Christmas sale titles. So I feel like we should delve into Cardcaptor Sakura because we've had a few questions about that. In particular, I believe it was USS J Trunks on Twitter asking about the price bracket for our Cardcaptor Sakura Collector's Edition.
That's perfectly reasonable on it. Given it is a 10-disc release completely authored from scratch, it's not cheap on that frontier, but it is coming in at, like, during the sale, it will be at a price of $89.99, and it will be selling normally for, I believe, $119.99.
Yes, that's correct.
Like, normally it's an SRP price point. I would also remind people for the Christmas sale that the Anime Unlimited scheme not only offers a 10% discount, but you also get a higher discount rate for your first order not your first order, but a discount code to use during one order in the sale as well, that's of a higher value. So I would keep an eye on that if I were you. And I would advise signing up before the Christmas sale, to be honest, if you're interested in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, to give you the pitch, yeah, if you head on over to alltheanime.com, you will find a form to sign up to Anime Unlimited. It is just $17.99 a year, and normally you get 10% off of any purchase you make on our store. And as Andrew mentions, during some sale periods, we do offer additional discounts that you will receive via email. So yeah, sign up and keep your eyes open on that. And also another good reminder to sign up to our email newsletter and subscribe to that, because we will be offering some additional discounts, even if you're not an Anime Unlimited member there as well.
It's worth pointing out as well with Cardcaptor as well, because it is 70 episodes.
Discounts, even if you're not an Anime Unlimited member there as well.
Like a significantly lower price when you work it out on a per episode basis. I know it's a large number up front on it, but just keep in mind on that one that there is a lot of work that has gone into that to make it happen on it. Like when you are looking through the prices on it. Everything else tends to fall in within normal range, so we don't tend to talk about those before the sale. But like this one is worth contextualizing the amount of work that's gone into it, because it is a completely fresh master using the 4K release, which looks stunning by the by. Like it's using the old Pioneer scripts, not the other version basically on it. Like there's a huge mix of work that went into that. Poor Andy and Robbie on our side have been sweating over that for a while now.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's been very much a labour of love because we know a lot of people have been excited for it, and we're really thrilled that we've managed to kind of pull together, you know, the latest, greatest video materials, and yeah, we're really excited to get it into people's hands. So you know, it's well worth every penny.
So we've got a bunch of fans internally on our side as well, waiting for it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think everybody's been kind of dying to get hold of it, so it'll be nice to finally have it out in physical form. And another Cardcap Sakura question while we're on that tip, BCDC dude in the YouTube chat asked earlier, so happy Cardcap Sakura is finally coming out. Will we get the movies down the line too?
Hopefully is the answer on that front. Yeah, we definitely want to do that. So stay tuned.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess I've seen a few sort of varied questions about this as well, and we should probably tackle it. And that is everybody's favorite franchise, Gundam. Vader F3 in the chat says 2021's been a great year for Anime Limited. You should be very proud. Thank you very much. But he was wondering if we have any big Gundam releases coming in 2022.
We definitely do on that front, yeah. So I mean, basically, like Gundam kind of goes in ebbs and flows for us. Like on at the end of the day, we do put a lot of work into it. There are some years there are more Gundam releases than others. So this year has been a little bit of a slower year for Gundam, and next year that flow picks up again a lot more. It wouldn't surprise you to know that Gundam Seed Destiny is on its way. We also have a bunch of other Gundam releases lined up. I think at the last count it was about 6 titles worth of Gundam split. Oh, so that's 6 titles, not 6 SKUs, like of Gundam. So many of those will be 2-parters as well. So I would stay tuned for the future on it. We've not forgotten Gundam on that frontier, and it's something that's very close to our hearts. It does just take a little bit more time to do. So we do appreciate people's patience very much on that frontier, you know?
Yeah, absolutely, yes. Excited to get back to Gundam in 2022. So yeah, watch out for that as we move into the new year. Another license question that a bunch of people have asked in varying forms. I'll pick Cyan from the YouTube chat as the latest of those, and none of these are me asking because I'm curious as well whether the Konosuba movie will be getting a release through us having released seasons 1 and 2.
The answer to that is hopefully. We will have more detail in due course. We can't say anything about it just now, though, but we have released part 1 and part 2. For season 1 and season 2 rather, and the film would go naturally quite along with it. But I think everyone internationally is on the same boat. I've not seen it listed like anywhere yet, so stay tuned, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So moving to another part of what we do, Leo Capella in the YouTube chat asked, the screening of Belle was great. Again, glad that you got to see that early, and plenty more opportunities to watch that film coming up as we move forwards. But he asked, will Anime Limited be screening further films at cinemas in 2022?
Yes, there's a bunch of films coming up next year. We have, like, obviously Belle is coming up, not far around the corner there. We also have Inuo, The Deer King, Pompo the Cinephile, all to go, plus a bunch of other films, like, on the list. Like, I'd really love to give Summer Ghost a bit more of a run as well. We've obviously done something as part of We Love Anime, but honestly, I can't stress enough how impressive it is as a piece. And I really want to show that some more to people as well. So we're going to see what we can fit in there. All in all, it's going to be a busy year for us, theatrically.
Yes, absolutely. And again, as the guy who does the plugs here, I will say if you do want to see Summer Ghost particularly, which you should absolutely check out, it is screening at Sheffield Loves Anime this weekend, and also screening as part of We Loves Anime around Picture House Cinemas in early December. So if you head over to www.lovesanimation.com, you will find details about that film and all the screenings of it there too. Also has a really great Q&A with Landro, the director of the film, which is well worth watching as well. So a really good package there to make the most of what is a really interesting film from an upcoming director. So next up from Nomadic Grav on Twitter, since you announced Alhazard, Boogie Pop, My Hime and more older anime recently, all coming in our Christmas sale incidentally, is there any chance you can delve into more of those pre-2005 shows for your catalogue?
I would really like to do that. I obviously started originally at Bandai, like around 2004, so I got to enjoy a lot of the pre-2005 titles back then when we were releasing stuff. So a lot of the stuff we've been releasing actually is stuff I remember very fondly and wanted a shot at the collector's edition for the UK market. So definitely not off the table. It really depends on the title and the length of it, because the titles which are a bit more classic, like it really depends on the BBFC. Which doesn't mean isn't say we don't think it'll pass it, but there's an additional cost, and the longer a show is, the harder it is to do a release that's going to make back its cash, you know, if there's only a limited demand for it. So that's really the juggling act we have to perform on it, you know.
Yeah.
But yes, in short, that's why I really love to go back to as well.
Yeah, and in a similar tip of things you used to do, Andrew, Nat in the YouTube chat asked, are any plans on more Kaze title rescues, i.e. Princess Jellyfish?
I mean, there's a lot of titles I really loved from around that time. Like when I also acquired Princess Jellyfish at the time when I was at Kaze. So like I have some really fond memories of those titles. So yeah, we would love that. But like obviously it's one of those things where it really depends on like the available titles at the time and the market. But we would like to, yeah. So keep your eyes peeled. And don't stop reminding us about titles. You never know when we've not remembered ones out there, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's always great for us to hear feedback on, you know, what people want to see and what they like. And, you know, it's no guarantee that we can just go and acquire it, but it is valuable information for us to see, you know, what interest levels are out there and kind of what people are thinking about. So, you know, absolutely useful to hear all of that stuff. And in similar terms, I've seen a couple of different questions asked about this one, but Joe in the YouTube chat asks very directly, any chance of an Angel's Egg release?
I mean, never say never on it, but there's a huge bunch of complications there on it. It either did or is screening at Leeds Film Fest. I think Leeds Film Festival's just finished now, so was come at the end. So I think it ran in the last week or so during that. And so it's never impossible. It's just a question of like how many hoops to jump through and such, and everyone has to jump through. It's why it's again not being released anywhere else in the world again. Like yeah, but we would like it's one that I personally really would love to give a shot to if we ever could.
Yeah,
it's on that dream list. Like you know, there's a bucket list of titles to pick up, and it's definitely pretty high up there on the list for me. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. So Nova in the YouTube chat asks, what are the chances for a home video release of the remaining Psychopaths content, having released Sinners of the System earlier this year?
I mean, we're huge fans of like the rest of the whole Psychopaths franchise, and I'm sure somebody will at some point, but we don't have any news on it on our side just now. Like there's a there's a lot going on just now, I think that, but we don't like it's one of those ones where like it's quite a very sprawling work at the end of the day. We've handled some of it, other people have handled other parts of it, and yeah, it's like one of those very, very big works. Honestly, I still can't get enough of it though. To think the same man who made Tokyo Marble Chocolate went on to make Psychopath still continues to blow my mind day to day as well.
Yeah, it is quite something. So here's a question that I feel like I have to ask because it wouldn't be one of these panels unless somebody mentioned it. Alexandros on the YouTube chat asked, what are your thoughts on making a monster of Naoki Urasawa fame a collector's edition? I
mean, that is truly, and also another title on the bucket list of titles for me as part of the dream. I absolutely adore that. But like the only thing that probably also holds that kind of title back is that to my knowledge there's still no Blu-ray release even in Japan for it, and like that's a crying shame because it's very hard to make a collector's edition from a DVD release nowadays, and I think it deserves a lot more than just a standard Amare release on DVD, you know. Yeah. So that mentally be the real holdback for me on it. It is on that list of titles I would really love one day. Yeah, for sure. So next up from the YouTube chat, Newbie Kolal asks, and we've had a few people asking this in various forms, about the possibility of licensing more Lupin the Third content. We are very open to more Lupin the Third content. I am a huge fan of basically a lot of Lupin. Ever since I saw Castle of Cagliostro a long time ago, I've been in love for show. So yeah, we would love to license more. The latest one's set in London as well, so that's a really good starting point, I would say. Stay tuned. But yeah, it's one of those works like alongside kind of Gundam for us, where we've not like it's not one we're giving up on anytime soon.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say, for people curious on that tip, like our Leap and the Third Part 5 home video release is kind of currently in progress, where we are working on that at the moment, because I know a few people have been asking us about that. That'll definitely be something we should be able to share more about in 2022. So that's definitely one that you should keep an eye out for, because that'll be an exciting one to put out there as well. So back to Twitter for a moment. Shadowcat UK asks, any news on High School Fleet?
At the moment, there's none, I'm afraid. It's one of those titles that kind of slip through the caps. Like on it just now, there's a lot of complications there on it. I wouldn't hold out too much hope just now on that frontier, I'm afraid. But you never know. Like when we have an update, we will let you know though as well. And I would love to hear if other people are interested in
much hope
in High School Fleet as well. I've certainly heard the one voice a lot on it, but I'd be very interested to know if there's more people out there as well on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like again, much like a lot of these things, really interesting to hear what people want, and we do hear that feedback, even if it's not something we can do anything about. So a couple of people have suddenly chipped in on the YouTube chat. Again, neither of them are me. I'll make clear. Asking about more Sound Euphonium, specifically season 2, and Liz and the Bluebird have both been asked in conversation there.
Well, I really am a huge fan of Now For Your Mother. So if there is a way to do Liz and the Bluebird, we would love to do it. So you never say never there. Same for season 2. It's just basically the different licensors for part 1 versus the rest of it. And therefore there's the discussions are always a little bit more complicated as a result in that kind of situation. But it's not impossible, and it is something we would like to do at some point. Season 1 was a bit of a slower seller, though, compared to other KyoAni titles, though. So it's about balancing up expectation there as well. But we are, I know that Andy certainly here would love the chance to release more than I would as well on it. So again, never say never there,
Yeah.
But we also have nothing to announce on it just now.
Yeah, absolutely. And also on a similar tip, and because I'm sure Miles, who is moderating this chat, would have my guts for garters if I didn't mention it, we've had quite a few people asking about Shirobako and the Shirobako movie as potential licenses as well. Any news on that?
My question is this just Miles repeating the question in chat until someone answers it?
I mean, it doesn't seem like it, but it could be. It could be all of his dummy accounts making this happen. Who knows?
All out at once. No, Shirobako is a really tough one, because that one does fall under undiscovered gems for me, especially now it has been dubbed as something that is even more attractive as an idea. It's just that demand levels are not the highest for it as well, as far as we can tell from things we've done before. So we need to really approach it carefully on that frontier and figure out how to handle it. But that one is very possible to do, and I would love to find a way to do it at some point.
Yeah.
If just because then Miles will be happy for a while with we can keep him distracted by giving him different editions to play with.
Yes, yeah, he doesn't own enough copies of Shirobako, I hear, so more would be welcomed, I'm sure. So here's an interesting question on a very different topic. Movie Rookie in the YouTube chat asks, would we consider releasing any yaoi titles?
It depends on what titles, but we're not opposed to that kind of title, or any kind of title if content's correct, we tend to look for titles based on, I think we've covered this a million times before, but we normally look for it based on the director, music, story, and if there's something compelling there, we'll look for it regardless of what genre it's in,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So Specificity Archives on the YouTube chat. I feel like that was a challenge just to make me say that name. Do you think that we'll be getting any titles from Katsuhiro Otomo, specifically talking about Freedom, and whether that might get another UK outing?
I mean, it's not impossible, and we do love Otomo-san's works. So again, never say never on that frontier. I really my favorite things that Otomo-san's done though are very often he has this really uncanny ability to pick out and curate shorts, and I love short film as a whole. So you get stuff like Memories that he's done, Short Piece, etc. Those are all really compelling pieces to me, and like I would love to come back to that kind of thing at some point, you know. So like, I mean, nothing to announce just now, but I would love to come back to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And so here's another interesting question from Ski on the YouTube chat. I imagine some of you in this chat probably got to enjoy watching End of Evangelion on the big screen as we put screenings out over the last week or so. And they asked, with the recent Evangelion cinema screenings, are there any plans to kind of go back and release older anime films in cinemas?
I mean, that one's an interesting question on it, because historically there's really a bit of a hit and miss reaction to doing that in the UK for theatrical. Like Perfect Blue did underperformed on that frontier. Evangelion, even just off like a one-day release effectively, like all in, did pretty well actually. Ghost in the Shell was at the right time for its release during World's End for Akira at the time, did very well. But like it really is kind of an ebb and flow. You don't always know what's going to work on that frontier or why. And so it's like, again, it's not a never say never thing, but it's like, it's certainly like we're very careful about what we suggest on that frontier, and it has to overlap with something like End of Evangelion. The End of Evangelion, for example, overlapped with the home video release coming up, for example. And yeah, like, so it really depends on the context. I would love to go through some of the classics as well. And like, for me, it would be like, I'd really love to do kind of a look back at titles like Shinkai-san's work or Hosoda-san's work at some point on the big screen, but never got a chance on wideband before. So yeah, like I say never on that kind of thing, but it does require a context and a kind of an angle.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of as a bit of almost a sidebar to that, was a kind of an interesting pivot. Klonoa7H in the chat asked about the possibility of licensing pre-Ghibli films from Ghibli creators, stuff like Chie the Brat and Ghost the Cellist.
That's a very good question on it. Again, not an impossibility on it. I think it's just a case of like, sometimes those kind of rights are locked away for certain times and such and aren't on the market, and sometimes they come back. Like, I would love to see things like Chie the Brat, especially, back on release. So again, like, it's on the bucket list of titles for me on it, where if there's an opportunity, I will definitely pursue it to the ends of the earth.
Yeah. Absolutely. So Marjuve in the YouTube chat asks, last year we released Full Metal Panic Invisible Victory with the audio drama included. How was that process, and is there any plan of doing a similar thing with any other titles?
So the process is actually pretty straightforward at the end of the day. You have to find the scripts, translate them, get your approvals the same as you would for an anime, and then like you just create a Blu-ray or DVD as normal basically and layer it with pictures. So it's actually pretty straightforward as a process. The real work is getting all the clearance to be approved, the translations, finding the scripts, which are not always easily found, like, and go from there. And the answer to would we do it again is actually yes. And it's not in the place you may think for us actually, but we'll have more on that like early next year, I would say, on it.
Yeah, and it's also worth noting in Full Metal Panic's case, the audio drama that came with Invisible Victory, we kind of looked at as a really important part because it actually covers like a missing story. Like basically it's one of the novels that wasn't adapted into anime. So we kind of felt like it was a key bit of connective tissue between season 2 and you know, season 3 basically of the anime proper. So it was kind of a special case. Like a lot of audio dramas aren't vital, but we felt in this case it wouldn't have been, you know, a proper complete collection unless that was in there, which is why we kind of worked to secure it. So moving to something slightly different again, Sai Yen in the YouTube chat asks whether we'll be exhibiting at MCM London Comic Con next year. The answer to that, I think, being a simple we don't know, but I guess, do you want to expand on that one at all, Andrew?
Yeah, it's kind of a time will tell on that one just now. It's basically a world situation point more than anything. Like, on it, we have to travel a long way to attend. Like, ourselves, and half of the value for us of going on our side, it's less about the income we make or such. We invest that back into promotion normally at the event. It's the chance to actually meet fans face to face and interact with them. But having to take a team from Scotland down to London is quite the voyage on it. And in the current world situation, it's just not it's not that easy to do just now. It's like it's still tough to even do like a 1 or 2 person business trip like on that kind of frontier, like on it. So it's really tough because we don't want to outsource the work on it, because half of the value for you as well is coming to see us, like as well, have a chance to interact. So we don't want you to be interacting with people who don't know the brand, don't know the content, you know, and can't give you answers about your questions you would like ideally an answer to. So it's kind of early days here. We obviously do want to be back at live events as soon as we can. So it's a case of like seeing what the situation's like towards the mid-year next year. But like honestly, I wouldn't be surprised to see us back at October at the latest, you know. But right now, with the current way the world situation is, we can't commit until we see how things are moving, you know.
Yeah, exactly that. So again, very much another watch this space, and I think we're all keen to see how things go in 2022, and hopefully we will be able to return to more of a normality there.
I mean, I think one thing we've learned though as well though through the process is that digital content like this is also really important. So I think even if there's kind of a halfway house at some point where there's still like whether the discomfort or not, like to going back to live events for people, it's still important to be doing digital contact as well with people, like things like this kind of live Q&A as well, because not everyone can make it to an event, and this is kind of highlighted and provided tools necessary to engage with people wherever you are at this point, and we're not keen to give that up either just now.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, you know, likewise in terms of Japanese guests, you know, it's fantastic being able to interview somebody via Zoom who, you know, maybe isn't able, even outside of pandemic times, they're perhaps too busy to travel to the UK for a trip, but, you know, they can spare an hour or two of their time to talk to us on via Zoom for, you know, recorded content. So, you know, we're getting some really great time with creators, that you know, that's a real benefit as well. So yeah, this is definitely, you know, regardless of what happens, this is definitely not the kind of thing we want to move away from, because yeah, like you say, there is a real value to it. So one quick Christmas sale question that I spotted that I can tackle, because I'm an Andrew too, really. So
technically it is still asking Andrew, it's true.
Exactly. So Talescubi in the YouTube chat asked whether we will be offering free international shipping during the 12 days of Christmas. That will be the same as last year. Yes, if you spend over £100, we will be offering free shipping there. So just a little point of note that will be the same as it was in 2020. So that's something that you can absolutely take advantage of. So we're kind of getting towards wrapping up time. So I've saved a couple of the most interesting questions to last, to test our brains a little bit. Leo Capello in the YouTube chat asks, basically what your thoughts are about the increase of kind of effectively like Western anime, stuff like League of Legends, Arcane, and some of the other stuff like Castlevania that we've licensed, I guess. What you think the implications of that are for anime in terms of who creates it?
That's a good question on it. I don't think it's clunky at all on it. I think the increase in content that highlights anime as a whole, like as a medium, is a good thing ultimately at the end of the day. Especially if it like increases the reach of it overall for everyone. Like I don't think the implications are that bad for anime in terms of who creates it. There's always going to be the majority of anime will always be made in Japan, or will be the original creators will be in Japan rather on it. That is, anime is created in a lot of different places in the world. Like it's just the main process for a lot of them is done in Japan, but a lot of the in-betweening is done outside of Japan, for example, on it. So it's I think the implication is just that there's going to be more work for more animators, hopefully, at the end of the day. What really matters there is that the industry standards are also addressed as well, you know? Yeah,
absolutely. So that takes us to our final question before we wrap things up. And this is perhaps the most difficult question of all. Defcos in the YouTube chat asks, what's the best part of working in the anime industry?
I think the best part, personally, for me, it has been ever since I started, is working in a space we're passionate, I'm passionate about on it, you know. It's really refreshing to come in and be working on projects day to day, but I really I believe in. I've worked with a lot of the creators in question directly before, so there's a personal stake in making sure it's done well, out there for me on it. And there's a lot of interesting and challenging projects on a regular basis. So it's basically it's never a dull moment, I think, and that's probably my favorite part of it. It's working with titles we know and love, and we want to show you guys what we love about them,
Yeah.
That's my end. What about you, Andrew? Asking another Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm with you. Working with passionate people about things that everyone is passionate about is fantastic. It's as much as we're a business, there is a real labour of love. I mean, talking about Cardcaptor Sakura, everybody was incredibly invested. From everyone on the team had such a fondness for that series that we wanted to make it the absolute best it could be. Neon Genesis Evangelion, another example of just something that we all poured a lot into, because it's such an important title and it's something that means a lot to us personally. I mean, I've said before, I wouldn't be sat in this chair doing this if it wasn't for Evangelion. It was what spurred me to be no, I'm an anime fan. And getting to work on those kind of titles and give them the love that they deserve, and to get them out to the widest possible audience of people who can enjoy them, whether they've been anime fans for years or whether they're just kind of dipping their toe in and trying to figure out what this anime thing is all about. And again, so going back to talking about conventions and events, it's really amazing getting to meet some of you people, some of you guys, and talk about, and to see your passion, and to hear, people who are just sort of making their first steps into anime, and, we've been kind of the conduit for helping them discover, great titles, whether they're more obscure or mainstream or whatever it is. And all of that is just kind of, it's certainly what gets me up in the morning, and I can enjoy it more if I tried, to be honest. And so I guess on that positive note, we will start to wrap things up here, so that people can go and do whatever else they're going to do with their Friday evenings. So thank you, all of you, for watching, both today and throughout the week. It's been really great to bring the variety of streams that we have to you. So thanks to everybody who took part in the YouTube chat. Thanks in the background to our moderation team, who have been collecting questions and keeping an eye on you all, but you've all behaved impeccably, so kudos to all of you. Thank you to Robbie, sat here whispering in my ear in the background to tell me that everything's okay on these live streams. It's very much appreciated. And
you wish you'd stay and do that normally, though, as well. I wish you would as well.
Yes, yeah, I should have recorded it for posterity, but it's just a shame that those of you watching this can't hear the whispering. But you'll just have to take my word for it that it's great and very valuable. And of course, thanks to the rest of the Anime Limited team, whether they've been helping with social posts or graphics, and just they're going about their general business. It's been a pleasure as always. So. Yeah, once again, thank you very much. We will doubtless be back with more Cloud Matsuri events and panels as time goes on. So, we're, as mentioned, even if physical events return, we're not going anywhere. And so finally, I'll just say a big thank you to Andrew Partridge for taking the time to answer all of your questions tonight.
Not at all. It's a big thanks to everyone as well for showing up and asking questions. Sorry to anyone we didn't have time to answer the questions from today. We will try and make an effort in the future to answer some of them as well. It's been a real pleasure, and thank you, everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, yeah, you can find us on all of the usual, all of our usual social channels at All the Anime. So if you ever have any questions about stuff, you can always feel free to drop them there. And again, if you check out alltheanime.com, you will find all of our goodies on sale, and so on and so forth. So, yeah. For a final time, thank you very much. We hope you all have a great weekend, and we hope to see you all again, be it virtually or physically, very, very soon.
Looking forward to it. Have a good one, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.